And good day, everybody. This is Emar Self-Portune. Welcome to another edition of the Verbal Submission Podcast, where we discuss everything in the world of combat sports. Thank you for joining us today. We're recording this on July 17th, 2019. Very jam-packed show. We've had a lot of mixed martial arts and professional wrestling take place around the world, literally, and we'll break it all down for you. As always, follow everything that we're doing. Head to the mothership, thesportsenquirer.net. Premier site for news and notes in the world of sports. We just recorded our latest edition of the Sports Enquirer show, where we broke down some Atlanta United content, as well as Wimbledon, the Federer and Djokovic championship match that took place a few days ago. We discussed the NBA, so that was our all-encompassing show. So I highly recommend that you check that out to get everything from there. We also have different videos from Atlanta United, Atlanta Dream, and a lot of stuff coming up as well. Very excited about this upcoming college football year. We're going to have some Media Day content hopefully later on next week from ACC and SEC as well as Sunbelt. So very excited about all the activities we have going on. Best way to follow everything that we're doing, besides heading to the site, sportsenquirer.net, is on Twitter and Instagram under Sports Enquirer, all one word. Make sure you do a search there, and you'll get all of our news and notes as we post them. You go to Facebook under The Sports Enquirer. That's all one word. Or there's The Sports Enquirer, those separate words, actually. We also have Sports Enquirer. That's one word. We have 2 pages on Facebook. Search those out, and you'll get a link to everything that we're doing. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under The Sports Enquirer. Not only do you get our archived verbal submission shows of the past and ones that we're going to do in the future, you also get access to the Sports Enquirer show, as well as our full audio and video content from interviews and pressers and things along those lines. So make sure when you subscribe to YouTube and SoundCloud, you'll get all of that stuff immediately when you register for it. And as I've mentioned many times before, I do support a lot of other podcasts and media entities, and it's frustrating when you check on there every single day to see if they've uploaded something new and it hasn't happened. You know, I'm not frustrated. I mean, I try to do something at least once a day myself, but, you know, life happens. But I subscribe to them on YouTube and SoundCloud and on Instagram and Twitter. So every time they put something up, I'm able to see I get a notice or a recognition from on my phone or my laptop or my tablet. I have all 3, and it tells me whenever they have something new up there. So that's why I highly recommend that you do that same for us, and we'll greatly appreciate that, and that'll help us out, and it'll make things easier for you. As far as today's show on the verbal submission, we're going to break down the G1 Climax from New Japan. That tournament started up last week, so we're going to we have some thoughts on that. Very exciting activities there. We're going to break down a lot of matches. They've done 4 nights so far, so I have thoughts on that. AEW, All Elite Wrestling, had their Fight for the Fallen contest last week on the 13th. So we will break down everything from that. And let's see what else. We'll talk about WWE Extreme Rules and developments from that. And Miscellaneous Department will talk UFC and acknowledge and respect a legendary boxer that passed away this week. So we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll get into New Japan Wrestling's G1 Climax here on the Sports Enquirer show. All right, welcome back to the Sports Enquirer show. Emar Self-Portune here with you. Yeah, New Japan's G1 but their tournament. I'll admit, I've been following New Japan for the past 2 years, and quite honestly, it started with the Okada and Kenny Omega feud that was culminating at Wrestle Kingdom, the show they have in the first week of the new year. And I honestly subscribed for that. And those are great matches. And Chris Jericho started getting involved in New Japan. So that intrigued me as an American. I know of New Japan for many years. I know about a lot of Muda and obviously Finn Balor or Prince Devitt and Shinsuke Nakamura, and you're on a list of all the guys that have been in New Japan that made their presence felt. And I even knew about it back in the 80s and 90s because you would hear about guys like Norton, and I said Muda was a big guy, a big Japanese wrestler that was getting some time in WCW, so back in the 80s and 90s. So I knew that it existed, but I really didn't follow it a lot until instead of the past 2 years. And if you know me personally, if the way New Japan works, at least for where we're at located in the United States, you pay for the service. It's like Netflix. I mean, you pay, or any streaming service, you pay X amount of dollars. It ends up being about $10 a month, and you get access to a lot of videos and interviews and all that stuff. If I pay for something, I have to use it. I don't like having any subscription service where it just sits there dormant. So I'm like, if I'm going to invest in this, and not only just for the big shows, I need to find a way to watch this. And this is my first G1 Climax investment in my whole life. And I've been thoroughly surprised about the quality of these matches and the time that's put into them. It is unique because they had the first matches, and it goes over, I think, 19 nights if you break down towards the end. Or not 19, that's a little much. I think it's around 11 or 12 when you get to the championships and all that stuff. So the first one took place in Dallas, and I don't have Access TV, so I can watch that live. I actually had to wait till the next day to watch it. But yeah, I can watch it live if we're in Georgia, we're in the Eastern time zone. Yeah, it doesn't start till around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning if I want to catch it live. So I don't do that. What I end up doing is I watch it the next day online, and I try to avoid the results as much as I can. And I've done a pretty good job so far of it. But it's really nice to wake up in the morning or in the afternoon and go straight to the site, log on, and watch up to 4 hours of wrestling per show. About three to 4 hours of each of their shows, because what they do is they're 2 blocks. And if you're listening to this, I'm repeating what you already know, but there's some novices out there, including myself. I had to learn about the format myself. So they have 2 groups of 10. One group is called Block A, one group is called Block B. They have a round robin tournament. They all face each other within that block. And if you win, you get 2 points. If you lose, you get 0 points. And then if it's a 30-minute draw, whatever amount of time they set for the match, that's 1 point. So everyone has to face each other in the block, and then the winner of Block A faces the winner of Block B, and the winner of that gets a title shot. And there's some unique wrinkles thrown in as well. The current champion of New Japan, Okada, he is in the tournament as well. So if he ends up winning it, he'll get to handpick his opponent for their next major event. And it's usually around, I think it's Wrestle Kingdom is when that title shot happens. But it's really unique seeing your top 20 guys in a round robin tournament facing each other in this way. The first night took place at Reunion. I call it Reunion Arena. I think it's American Airlines Arena, actually, in Dallas, Texas. I thought the arena was too big for them. I think New Japan, if you're going to have and they've been making a push in the United States. Obviously, Japan and Asia, their presence is very strong. They do events in Australia, but they're trying to expand to Europe and especially the United States. It's kind of reversed, where a lot of the United States entities, like the NFL, as far as sports goes, NBA, even Major League Baseball, they want to expand into Asia because they have the United States market pretty held down, or North America if you include Mexico and Canada. New Japan's the reverse. They have the Asian market well locked down, but now they're trying to move into the United States. And they've had some very good cards on the coast, as far as California and in New York. They were there this past WrestleMania weekend. They had a joint event with Ring of Honor, and that was sold out and went very well. It was a very good event. But when they go to other parts of the country, I don't know if their presence is felt yet. They could have done this in Philadelphia or Chicago, some strong wrestling cities. And Dallas is a strong wrestling city as well, but I don't think it worked there as far as the setup and the look of it. I think there was about 4,000 or 5,000 people there, but it's an arena that holds 20 plus, so it looked like it was an empty arena. So they actually drew a decent amount of people, but they could have held it maybe in a different arena, because if you see what they do in California, they hold it at the Cow Palace in San Francisco, or smaller venues in Southern California. Now, New York was Madison Square Garden, which is a big arena, But as I said, they had the Ring of Honor deal there as well. It was WrestleMania weekend. It was a convergence of all the WrestleMania folks. So they were able to sell out because people were going to WrestleMania, also going to go to New Japan event. This was a standalone event in the middle of the country in Dallas, and I thought they could have done a better job as far as where they held it. Now, the matches themselves were very good because it was the opening of the A block. So far, there have been 4 nights of action, and the A block has fought in nights 1 and 3, and the B block has done nights 2 and 4. And the interesting thing is, when you have the A block individual matchups, because as I said, they all face each other, the other block have tag team matches, and there'll be previews kind of the next matchup, and that's where you get the rest of the New Japan roster could be involved in some of those. And so that adds a little bit of intrigue as well. You're not just seeing the block action, you're getting some other activities. I'm going to focus on the block matches and not necessarily those tag team matches because there really hasn't been any standouts from those that I want to really highlight because I think the focus is on the blocks, and that's where we'll start. That first night, the A block, of some interesting results. Lance Archer beating Will Ospreay was a surprise to me. I thought Ospreay is dealing with some injuries right now because I think he's going to miss the next set of fights, at least his individual block. I don't know how they're going to book around that, but if he's out for a long time, that's very disappointing. He is their junior heavyweight champion, and it's been a big push for him in New Japan, but Archer beating him I thought was a surprise. Fale was able to defeat Evil. Thought that was okay. Kenta, who is the former Hideo Itami in WWE, he's been fighting in the United States the past few years. He's now back in Japan. He fought in Japan, but he fought under another Japanese promotion, but now he's in New Japan. So it's kind of unique. He's a Japanese legend, but he's never fought in New Japan. He's fought in other promotions, but now he's in New Japan. He beat Ibushi. And I thought that was a good move. They want to give Kenta some momentum making this move. They've really built him up. So he took the win. Sonata beating Sabre Jr., I wasn't too mad at that. And Okada beating Tanahashi in the main event for Block 1. So all the matches I thought were pretty straightforward. That they let Fale win, so they need to build some credibility with them. Even Lance Archer winning. I think they had some guys that they want to get victories in the first match or two to make them credible. And Archer continued his luck in his second match in the A block with a win over Bad Luck Fale. Excuse me. So Archer is now 2-0, and he's beaten Fale, who's the second biggest guy in the competition. Archer is right there with him size-wise, and he's able to beat Ospreay. So Archer's off to a very good start. He's 2-0. Okada, you would expect, is 2-0 as well. He beat Sabre Jr. in his second matchup, so he is on a nice roll. Kenta beat Tanahashi to improve to 2-0. So Kenta is off to a very solid start. Now Tanahashi is 0-2, and Sabre Jr. as well. I would have said both of those guys could have been dark horses to win the block, and there's still a lot more fighting to go. Each fighter has 7 matches remaining, but to get off to an 0-2 start is surprising, especially on the Tanahashi side. Now, this could be a build-up for him to come back, but you're already down 0-2, and Okada and Kenta are both 2-0. I think those guys are going to start winning quite a bit more. Ibushi's also 0-2. I don't know what the story is there. Evil defeated him on the second night of the A block. I wasn't too sure about that, what's going on there. And Ospreay was able to beat Sonata, just rounding things out. So right now you have Archer, Okada, and Kenta, both undefeated so far. I don't know if Archer is going to keep it up, but I think having a big man like him being on top of the standings in this early stage is intriguing. And we all know Okada is probably going to end up winning his block. But still, you want to have some intrigue. Kenta and Okada, when they face each other, it's going to be kind of the battle of the best of both worlds in Japan because they've never been able to fight each other just due to the politics of the way things are. So I'm very excited to see what happens in the rest of the A block. Now, the B block itself, let's see, we'll move on to there. There's been some surprises there also. While the A block, I think, has the star marquee names, I mean, when you have Kenta, Okada, Tanahashi, these are world champions. Ospreay and Sabre Jr., probably the 2 best Europeans in New Japan. both from Great Britain, and two of them are very marquee names. You look at the A block, and it's very star driven. But the B block, I think wrestler for wrestler, outside of one who I'll get to, have a very intriguing as well. We'll start off with Juice Robinson. He's 2-0 so far in the B block. And Juice is the former Parker wrestler from, you've seen him in WWE and NXT, and kind of had a middling career in the United States. But he's gone to New Japan and brought a lot of energy with the tie-dye, I guess, tights. And he had the dreads or the braids. He cut them off. But he brings a lot of energy and a lot of activity and signed a long-term deal with New Japan. And so far, he's performed. He's been 2-0. He defeated Tagati and then defeated Goto. So he's won both of his matches so far and has been very strong so far in the tournament. Jon Moxley, the former Dean Ambrose that you've known from WWE fame, he is also 2-0 so far in his competition so far. His first match against Tai Chi, I liked that. That was on night 2, the first night of B block action. I liked that the match started outside of the ring. While we know Moxley is Ambrose and they're trying to make him the fringe lunatic and he was acting out kind of crazy in WWE, you're seeing him be more authentic in New Japan. And he's not going to be the traditional mat wrestler, even though he can do that stuff. But he's going to have chairs. He's going to brawl outside. You're starting to see him bring that element to the New Japan competition. And Tai Chi, that was a very good way to start the match. I like that they fought and brawled for a few minutes before the match even started. And once he got into the ring, Moxley was able to get the win. And then Moxley defeating Jeff Cobb in the second night of B block action. And I'm surprised by that as well, because, and we'll get to Cobb in a minute, but I'm surprised by that element of it. But Moxley being 2-0 is very good for his credibility, because you had to get him winning and make it seem like he has a chance to win this. And I think they've done that very well. Ishii is also 2-0. He was able to defeat, let's see, where's Ishii? Why am I missing Ishii? Let's see. Oh no! Wait a minute. He is actually 1-1. I miswrote that, but we'll talk about Ishii. He had maybe my favorite match so far overall out of all the 4 nights. Him and Jeff Cobb, very, very physical. These are men who were pushed 250 pounds, about 6'2", 6'3". Excellent, just forearms and aggressiveness. And a little bit of a tangent. I've been watching Al Snow wrestling tutorials. He does it, and William Regal as well. Both of them very strong wrestling careers in the ring, but now they've done very good jobs training wrestlers. And I've been watching the footwork and the techniques as far as where guys are placing their feet, how they're using punches or forearms and things like that. And one of Al Snow's biggest things is not to use punches, because if it was, and I'm paraphrasing what Al's saying, but if it's a real fight, we know wrestling is predetermined and all that jazz. But if it was a real fight, what you're trying to simulate, if you punch somebody in the face, that would knock them out a majority of the time, or would cause bruising or more damage than what you see. So in essence, do not use punches unless it's part of your finish or things like that. And then there are traditionalists who say open fist punches are illegal in wrestling, which I like to have that policy as well. But what you see in New Japan, they do a very good job of not throwing punches. They use their forearms. They'll use clotheslines. Ishii likes to use headbutt, trying to tie it all together. They use all of those elements as far as their hands, as far as trying to strike the opponent. And Ishii is so strong with that, with his headbutts and his punches. Actually, I did. Ishii is 2-0. I'm going over the charts. I'm looking over everything. Ishii defeated Jeff Cobb. My notes are incorrect. So Ishii is 2-0 because Jeff Cobb is 0-2. But they had my favorite match because it added the element of physicality. It was unpredictable. You had some strong suplexes that nearly made the ring break. But I liked what I saw from that match. It was the most realistic wrestling match I've seen really so far this year. So credit to them. But yeah, Ishii's 2-0. he's become a dark horse in this division. I didn't think he would be that. I had some other guys kind of rated ahead of him, but I'm looking at the layout of it, especially with like Jay White, who's 0-2 himself. I thought Jay would be a major threat in the block. He's the New Zealander, former world champion. I thought he would have an opportunity to make a run, but he's 0-2 so far. Yeah, Jay White has lost so far to Goto and then to Ishii. So a little bit of flip so far. I would have had Jay White 2-0 and Ishii 0-2. But as I said, it's very early in the tournament, so things may turn around. And Jeff Cobb, I wasn't too familiar with him. As far I know, he's the Hawaiian, wrestled for Guam in the Olympics. He was in the same division as Yoel Romero and another big mixed martial artist. So that was a very tough division back in the day in the Olympics at heavyweight. But I like what I see from Jeff Cobb for a man his size. He has good fluidity, good movement, and I think he's a guy that they can build on. But being 0-2 in this bracket is not very good. Moxley got his second win of the tournament over Cobb. So we'll see what happens there. And then also in the B block, Yano, who I'm not warming up to him. He has a very fluorescent tights. He's always laughing and smiling. He has the DVDs that he's always trying to sell when he's walking down the ring, a comedy act. And that's important, though, because I'm not a supporter of him, but he does have a place in wrestling. I mean, I treat wrestling like a professional sport, very seriously. A lot of competitiveness and guys really going out there and trying to be the best. And sometimes some comedy is good. Sometimes you can laugh, and that's what he tries to do. His sense of humor doesn't really work for my sense of humor as far as antics go, but I can roll with it. I was very surprised, though, that he defeated Naito in the first night of B-Block action on a roll-up. I guess that does kind of work with his character, where Naito was trying to be physical and tough as a bad guy, as a heel, and he's made a really big turn over the past year and a half with Los Incurables de Japón. I know I missaid that, but you get what I'm saying. So he has become a really nasty fighter. So him to face Yano, and a guy who likes to run around and be silly, there was some contrast. And Naito was trying to get his offense in. He got a good amount in, but Yano was able to get the roll up and get the win. And I guess it gives him a little bit of credibility because he got tight. Takagi beat him up pretty good in the second night. So I guess they gave Yano the win over Naito to give some credibility to him as they move on through the tournament. Naito did lose to Tai Chi, though, as far as his second match. So he's 0-2. I would have said my predictions I think I had were Okada versus Naito in the final. It may happen. It may not. We'll see. But just overarching thoughts is I like having all of these matches on TV. I like the crowd atmospheres in Japan. I love the silence. And I like that they're very focused on that. Even the young boys and the guys from the dojo, and the dojo is where the wrestlers train. It's like their practices. And the way it works is that you're a young wrestler. You go to the dojo. You train for X amount of time. And after a while, you're able to move up to the card and be a wrestler. So they have a dojo in Japan and a dojo in Los Angeles. So they've had those young guys kind of assist the wrestlers when you see them on the side of the ring as far as helping them with their costumes and helping lead the way where they should go. So you see some interaction. Some of the bad guys are punching the young lions, or they call the young wrestlers. I like that. I like that they're trying to do some of that as well. And the commentary has been very good. I'm a big fan of Kevin Kelly. I think he does a very good job with the announcing, the English announcer. And I like Don Callis, but he's obviously tied up to his commitments with Impact Wrestling and probably was unable to do these shows. I don't know if you probably won't do any of the shows and as far as the G1 Climax goes. So Rocky Romero's been doing them, and I like Rocky. He's been wrestling in Japan for years and years, so he has relationships with them. I guess he's part of Chaos, which is a little faction storyline-wise that they have there. But he knows all these guys, gives a lot of information, very experienced, it calls it straight up. Obviously, he has issues with some of the wrestlers because they're not for chaos. You can tell he's a little bit of biased commentary. It's not the worst in the world, but Kelly and Romero, I think, do a very good job with the English. And I'm fortunate that they do have the English commentary because while the Japanese commentary, I've done it before, and it's not wrestling, but I've watched a lot of international soccer matches in Spanish. So the language isn't a major issue for me, but I do like the fact that there are English commentators and it gives you a better picture of what's going on. I like that Kelly acknowledges the wrestling moves themselves and Romero as well and say what they are. So that's been a good thing so far. One little negative, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. The false finishes have gotten out of control, not just in New Japan. We'll get to AEW, and they're just as bad. And WWE, they're all guilty of it. But, man, I'm seeing moves that should put guys in the hospital, from suplexes to power slams, tombstones, and all this other stuff. And guys are putting the move on, and it doesn't even get a 3 count. It's a little bit annoying where you see guys' finishers will get kicked out of. I've seen Rainmakers from Okada get kicked out. I'm trying to think of other ones. Kenta, they've protected Go to Sleep, his move where he knees the guy in the air. But other guys, I've just seen their moves that you would think will put a guy away, and it doesn't work out. And I'm trying to revise it. I'm thinking as I'm saying this, they do protect finishers. They're not bad with it. Like when Juice puts in a Pulp Friction, he'll get a pin. Okada, when he gets a full Rainmaker in, they protect that. So they're not. When you get the actual finisher in, yeah, that's fine. They don't really kick out of those too much. But the moves you get to the finisher, you shouldn't even need a finisher if you're literally powerbombing a guy from the second rope or you're suplexing him from the top rope. That should be a match finisher. And it doesn't even, the match is even halfway over and guys will kick out and they'll still keep going. So it's a little bit frustrating as a fan watching it, trying to figure out when it's going to happen. But if you want to suspend your disbelief and go that route, you make that argument, yeah, it's not too bad, but it's been overkill in New Japan, seeing all of these matches not conclude when I think they should. But I've enjoyed watching it so far overall. And outside of a random event here and there, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So there are a new set of matches starting tomorrow on Thursday, July 18th. So I'll be watching them as well, and we'll recap some more on our next Verbal Submission. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll go into All Elite Wrestling's Fight for the Fallen and my thoughts on that here on the Verbal Submission. Okay, welcome back to the Sports Our Show version of the Verbal Submission. This is E. Marcel Portu. We're recording this, as always, on Wednesdays or Thursdays. It's on Wednesday, July 17, 2019. So Fight for the Fallen from AEW. They're technically AEW's third major event of the calendar year. We had Double or Nothing and Fyter Fest in the spring and the early summer. Now we're in real summer. And this event took place on July 13th. I think you're starting to see some improvements from the promotion as far as, well, I take that back a little bit. Watching the pre-show, there was the technical glitch of the black bars for the closed captioning coming up during the match when it was supposed to. That lasted about 5 minutes. But besides that, I thought it was done very well. I think you're starting to see some more organization as far as the show goes. Even the pre-show, which gets routinely insulted, and rightfully so. They've had some bizarre singles matches and battle royals and all that stuff. I thought the pre-show was okay. I was going to go main event to pre-show, but we'll work our way up. It makes sense to do it this way. Yeah, the pre-show itself, nothing really stood out to me. The Sonny Kiss, Peter Avalon match, the Librarian versus Sonny. I'm not a Sonny Kiss, doesn't really do it for me. The production was okay. He came out, with Sonny Kiss is a male wrestler that I would say dresses like a woman, and that's part of his gimmick, which is fine. It's okay. And he's actually an okay wrestler. The moves are solid, very athletic, good build. So there's some stuff there. But he came out with the Jacksonville Jaguar cheerleaders and their mascot, which kind of fit his persona. It came out with the cut off Jalen Ramsey jersey. So playing to the local crowd, I kind of get that. Peter Avalon with the librarian gimmick, which I thought was an okay gimmick with being the Elite, which is their weekly YouTube show. The fans really don't like it though. But that's good though. That's heat. It's gonna go away heat, which is not the best heat in the world. But if you get a reaction from the fans, whether it's yays or boos, extreme one way or the other, that's not the worst thing. But yeah, people are really not liking the gimmick. And Sonny Kiss got the win. Really quick match. It was whatever. The women's tag team match, I thought was okay too. You're seeing Riho and Britt Baker. They lost to Bia and Shoko. I thought the match was okay. Really no standouts in that regard. But that's the pre-show. And as I mentioned on a previous recap of an AEW show, you can say it's a pre-show. You can say it's not. But if it's broadcast on your airwaves, that's a part of the show. You can't give the excuse of, it's the pre-show, it could be lackluster, and then our main show is going to be awesome. No, you can't do that. You can't get away with that. But I thought the pre-show was a little bit better. No silly gimmicks, no bizarre activities. I know the Sonny Kiss, Peter Avalon match was a little whatever, but it wasn't too bad overall as compared to what they've had go on in previous shows. Then the main card started. I didn't like this match going in because and the result of it was MJF, Sammy Guevara, and Shawn Spears defeated Darby Allin, Jimmy Havoc, and Joey Janela. I like MJF and Shawn Spears, and Darby Allin has warmed me up a little bit. But man, when you have a 6-man tag, it's hard to distinguish any personalities, any elements of spontaneity when it's just a spot fest, and that's what it turns into. And you're not able to distinguish what you're trying to do. I think what they're trying to do, MJF is the obvious heel and is getting heat. Fans starting to like him though a little bit too much, but he's doing his best to try to keep the heat gimmick on as far as being a bad guy, insulting everybody, things like that. Sammy is a guy that is nice to your face, but then talks crap about you behind your back. We get that. And then Shawn Spears with the chair shot heard around the world at Fyter Fest, bloodying up Cody Rhodes. So he has a lot of heat there. And then MJF and Shawn Spears have beef because MJF is apparently Cody Rhodes' best friend. So that part of it was okay. There were some interactions there between Spears and MJF where they're on the same team, but they don't like each other. So that wasn't too bad. The other side of things, you have Allin, Jimmy Havoc, and Joey Janela. I said Allin, I liked his match at Fyter Fest against Cody Rhodes. That was the draw, and that was very interesting to me. I like that match. So Allin, I'm okay with. Havoc and Janela have done nothing for me as far as being really good wrestlers or personalities. I know in the independent scene, they've been very popular, and that's cool. But this match really didn't distinguish anything for me as far as those guys go. I said MJF had some decent moments, Spears as well, and Sammy was okay as well. But yeah, 6-man tags, though, is very tough to have a distinguishable characteristic from that match. The women's match this was singles match, was Brandy Rhodes defeated Allie. Rhodes had the support of Awesome Kong, who did not wrestle in this match, but I'm pretty sure she's going to be more involved when the weekly show comes on TNT in the fall. I thought Rhodes, she hasn't wrestled in a long time. You could tell that Randy's trying to work through some things. Allie is a solid wrestler as well. The match, as I said, was okay. It really could have been swapped out for the women's tag team match that was in the pre-show, but Randy Rhodes trying to be a major face of the women's division, which is improving and trying to grow. So I understand her spot being there. But as far as the match itself, I really wasn't inspired of it at all. And Asa Kong came out after the match and confronted Awesome Kong. So the two Kong women wrestlers in the industry were face to face. I think that's a match that we can expect to see. I don't know if we're going to see it all out later on in the summer, but that showed some intrigue. So at this point, the wrestling was okay, not necessarily great. Crowd was into it and involved. Outdoor arena in Jacksonville, and I've been to Florida several times. I have family in Orlando, which may as well be Jacksonville. No, sorry, those of you down in Florida, but if it's hot one place, it's hot everywhere. And it was going into nighttime. It's hot in Atlanta too, in Georgia where we're located. But yeah, outdoors, you could tell it was warm. And to the fans' credit, they did not leave. I didn't see too many empty seats, but you could tell they were wearing down as the night was coming through, even with the sun going down. And that started to show in the Adam Page and Kip Sabian match. They have an interesting Adam Page dilemma. You know about the Bucks and Kenny Omega and Cody Rhodes, the square of executive vice presidents in AEW. So we know about those guys, but you can tell they want Adam Page to be their first world champion and to carry that mantle, because the Bucks and Omega and Cody don't need the belt to really elevate their clout. Now, eventually, Cody's going to want the belt and Omega, and that's going to happen in the future. But for now, you can tell Adam Page is the guy they've been pushing. He's featured prominently in Being the Elite, the YouTube show. He gets a lot of vignettes. He gets a lot of favorable spots in that Battle Royal to earn the title shot. He was the last entrant. He got his own music and his own entrance there. You've seen him really pushed in a major way. I would have liked to have seen Adam Page. He ended up winning the match against Kip Sabian. Don't necessarily have to be a squash match, because Sabian is a guy that they want to have as a solid hand, I think, in the promotion. But it took only almost 20 minutes for Page to win that match, and he didn't look very strong doing it. That should have been a 6-7 minute match. Sabian could have gotten some of his moves in, but Page really should have stomped him down pretty good, got his buckshot lariat in where he goes against the ropes, and 1, 2, 3, make it quick. And it was a very, very long match that I don't think did many favors to Page. And furthermore, you had Page attacked by Chris Jericho post-match. Jericho came in with a dark sweater and pants and a mask on. I didn't know who it was, and attacked him, and then he took the mask off, and it was Jericho. So we all knew that. And Jericho was expected to be there, and he cut a promo, and Page returned the favor after Jericho cut his promo. So they're both feuding. I mean, that's going to be the match. I don't know if it'll be the main event necessarily, but it's going to be it should be, I guess, for the AEW title at All Out. So I think that Page you got to believe in him more, that he's going to be a threat to Jericho. And even not only to be a threat, but when he wins the match, can be that flagship guy. Now, this is our first world champion in history of the promotion. So I think they have to do a little bit of rehab with Page. He has to look stronger. He's got to cut better promos. You got to believe in him more. And you're just not getting that full effort from him so far. The Lucha Brothers defeated SoCal Uncensored. Another long match. I liked it, but when these matches are going to 15, 20 minutes, especially with those elements, it could be a little bit much. And then after the match, Lucha Brothers actually challenged the Young Bucks to a ladder match at All In. And, will be accepted. And those guys have good chemistry, so that should be an interesting contest. Kenny Omega defeated Cima in his match. This one really could have been shorter as well. Cima, for an older gentleman, is a tremendous wrestler. Omega, we know once he gets in the ring, he has some goofiness to him, but once he's in the ring, as a tactician, there may not be a better one in the world right now. So I thought that match went okay. And then finally, the Young Bucks defeated Cody and Dustin Rhodes. A match that really could have been 10 minutes shorter than it was. You know what I liked about this match, though? the Young Bucks wrestling in a different style. I've accused the Young Bucks of being obsessed with getting their spots in and their jumps and their kicks and not really using any psychology. But in this match, I have to give them credit. They wrestled with a little more, in a more tactical way. They got their spots in. They got their the Meltzer move in, and they did their double teams that they're known for. But I like the pacing of the match. That's what I'm trying to say. You could tell they're trying to build a story. The Bucks were actually wrestling on a heel way, which was different because the Young Bucks started not only the indie darlings, but the darlings of this entire promotion. And it was a face, and Cody's a face as well. That's the thing. They have a lot of faces, a lot of good guys. Adam Page is a good guy. Who's going to be a bad guy? And that's what I liked about the match. You saw a little more tactical wrestling from the Young Bucks. And Cody is the best we've ever seen him. And the man has been a champion in WWE. He's been wrestling a very long time. This is the best Cody that we've seen in the wrestling ring. So I like we're seeing Cody. And then Dustin Rhodes, for a man 50 years old, unapologetic about it, I don't know if this is his best wrestling as far as, because you got to go from the natural, and then when he was WCW, the Goldust is legendary character in WWE. I don't know if it's the best he's ever done, but for his age, for him to keep up the way he has was very good. And I said I like the psychology of it. It's good to have him in that locker room, in that entity. I don't know where he goes from here, because he already had what could have been his retirement match against Cody at a Double or Nothing. But now he's teamed up with Cody, so we've seen them fight each other, and we've seen them team up in a match. So I don't know where it goes in the future, but I enjoyed that match, but it just went a long time. And what we're seeing now, WWE as well, back in the day, 5 years ago, pre-internet coverage of these shows, you had a set time, beginning and end. You knew when you were watching a pay-per-view that once 11 o'clock Eastern hit, that show was over because they weren't going to pay to go into overtime. You knew that there was time limits on these matches. With the internet, and this one was on Bleacher Report and Fight TV, WWE has its own network. New Japan is, at least for the United States where we're located, is on their website. You can stream 3-4 hours of wrestling, and while I'm home and I can go to the restroom and get a snack or do all that stuff, these matches and these shows end up lasting a really long time. So by the time, even when we got to Omega and SEMA, I was kind of worn out and pooped out. And part of that was watching the New Japan shows and catching up on all of that. But also, it's just like, man, there's a lot of wrestling. So by the time we got to the Bucks against the Rhodes brothers, we're kind of ready to move on from what we were seeing. And the fans, it was kind of not unhappy, but just worn out in that heat. So I think what they need to work on in the future is being a little more tighter with the matches. And I know you have all the time in the world to work with, but you don't have to go 20 minutes every single match. And that's where you need to see some improvements. But I like the storytelling that they're doing, what they're trying to build up. You have MJF and Shawn Spears with their issues. I think that's going to be a match eventually that you'll see that's going to be fun. Yeah, obviously you have the Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. They have that going on. I think Cody has some interesting matchups that they can roll with. I'm trying to think of the other ones. I'm forgetting one. Oh, Omega and Moxley. Obviously, Moxley is doing his thing with New Japan. We just talked about him. I think Omega and Moxley are going to link up again and do some things. Jericho and Page, obviously, they're already set to fight for the world title. So they're doing some long-term booking, which is a good thing. Even the Kongs, Awesome and Asa, you see them two face-to-face. So I think the booking is good. You're starting to see some, and I say long-term in professional wrestling in 2019, that's 3 months. It's not like you can't have a feud for a year or two. But I think they're trying to build up to some different matches, and that's a good thing. And I enjoy what I've seen so far from AEW. I said I can nitpick and criticize some things, but overall, I like what I'm seeing. Now, their next event, I said, is the All Out. We got to pay for that one, and that's where we're gonna, the numbers. I'm interested to see what they're going to be, because Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen have been for free on Beach Report, or I guess Fight TV as well. But the next one is a paid one. Now it's their pay per view, and it should be, and they got to make money. I understand that, but I'm very intrigued to see what direction they go with that one, because that'll be their big kickoff in essence for their weekly TV shows. And as far as the TV show goes, we don't know if they're going to tour the country yet, or are they going to go and film all their shows in one location. So we haven't even gotten word on that yet. So I'm very intrigued to see what the fall brings for AEW. We'll take one final break, and we'll come back. We'll touch on WWE, UFC, and discuss the legacy of Pernell Whitaker here on the Verbal Submission. Okay, welcome to the final segment of the Verbal Submission. Your host, E. Marceau Portute, here with you. We'll get to UFC in a moment. We'll go to WWE. We'll wrap up some of the wrestling. The Extreme Rules pay-per-view that took place this past Sunday. Really, all you need to know is the very end, when the intergender match between Lacey Evans and Baron Corbin versus the WWE Universal Champion in Seth Rollins and the Women's Champion in Becky Lynch, the real-life couple. The match itself, I was confused with the rules of it, because they said it was like no holds barred, yet it was a tag match. So why wouldn't all four of them just brawl with each other in the middle of the ring, or outside of the ring for that matter, if there were no rules? I guess you could say you need to have a pinfall in the match. So, okay, if they can only wrestle in the ring or go outside for some stuff before you get to 10 counts, I understand that. I don't understand that. It's like, what are you trying to do as far as the rules go? Why are they just standing on the apron and not just fighting each other? And this is why I do not like intergender matches at all. Men hitting women is unacceptable, but a woman hitting a man is looked at as okay. Women should not be hitting men should not be hitting women. And that's not that goes beyond. That's why I didn't watch 1 minute of the, I don't know what it was like on Facebook. They had that tag team tournament with all the intergender teams on WWE. I don't watch that at all. And I know if you say, what about Impact with Tessa Blanchard and Callahan? I saw that match as well. I'm not saying that the women wrestlers aren't talented and can't hold their own in the ring against men, but this is professional wrestling that needs an element of reality. Even if the women and the men have the same exact weight and height and size, like you'll say, what if you have an Awesome Kong, who is a bigger woman, in the ring against a smaller wrestler? So when they're smaller than her, and there are male wrestlers that are smaller than her, it's still a man fighting a woman. And the majority of the time, if they're trained professionals, which these guys are supposed to be, if they're in a wrestling ring. Now, me personally, I'm not an athlete. I'm not a wrestler. These women wrestlers, if we fought for real, they could probably kick my butt. That's real, because they're trained athletes, especially when you get to MMA, where they really throw punches and kicks for real. Yes, they can kick my butt. I get that. But if you're going to put them in the ring with another trained professional in that same sport, that man should win the fight. And we're in an era right now where we're very sensitive to abuse and physically and mentally and things along those lines, as far as men against women, as far as the Me Too movement and all that stuff. You got to be very sensitive having that happen. So there are times in that match and other ones where Lacey Evans will try to get a punch in on Rollins, or Becky Lynch will try to do some stuff with Baron Corbin. And that should not, first of all, it's against the rules, but two, it's just not good seeing those visuals. And then later on in the match, you have Baron Corbin put his suplex finishing move on Becky Lynch, and all of a sudden that incensed Rollins, and that led him to lead to 3 curb stomps on Corbin to get the victory and keep the titles for Corbin. No, keep the titles for Rollins and Lynch. So it's just it was a very clunky match, very confusing with the rules. I didn't like it at all, and also did not like Brock Lesnar coming down the ring and cashing in his Money in the Bank briefcase, beating Seth Rollins and winning the title. The only angle I can see with that, and I don't understand when you talk about right now WWE all-time rating lows as far as Raw and SmackDown. They're drawing 1.5 million, 2 million people, which is the lowest that they've had in years. And who's been a champion for a good amount of that time? Brock Lesnar. They want to stick it on Seth Rollins that he's not a charismatic champion. They want to stick it on Roman Reigns, saying that his monotone promos and the fans don't like him. That's the reason the ratings are low. Why is Brock Lesnar not held accountable as those two guys are? Why would they look at the ratings and find excuses for Lesnar when he wants to show up? There were months at a time, literally, where he would not even show up in a wrestling ring. I don't need him fighting every week. The fighting champion thing, here's my policy on that, and then we'll move on to some quick UFC notes and Pernell Whitaker. A champion needs to fight every 30 days. That I believe in. Just conceptually, that's the way I was raised as a wrestling fan, and that's the way it should be. When Daniel Bryan, after WrestleMania 30, and he won the championship, and he was dealing with his injury issues, they stripped him of the title when he could not fight for 30 days and defend the title. When Finn Balor won the Universal title, very first Universal champion, he fights Seth Rollins, takes a bad bump, hurts his shoulder, and he can't wrestle in 30 days. They take the title from him. Brock Lesnar wins the title, literally does not show up on TV for a month or two at a time. Show up on TV, cut a promo, do a video. You like living in the woods or your log cabins in Canada and in the Dakotas. Cut a video there of you training on your farm. Give me something. And the fact that you would not hear from the man for a month and a half, and no acknowledgement on TV or from Vince McMahon that he needs to defend his title is a joke. Now, we're going to see him at SummerSlam, which is about a month from now, so he'll fight then. And you'll probably see him for the first SmackDown that's on Fox. I don't know what the exact launch date is for that, but once that happens, and if Lesnar still has the title, you're not going to see him fight or on TV on a more consistent basis. And that's very disappointing. And plus, Brock's gotten stale to me. We know he's the beast and the incomparable guy, but he's lost. Goldberg freaking beat him. We've seen that happen. We've seen him lose to other guys. His invincibility means nothing to me right now. Is he a legitimate badass fighter? Yes. And has that UFC credibility with him? Of course. But at this stage of the game, he brings nothing or not much to the table for me. And whenever I see him come out, it's just a groan for me. And that should not happen with your world champion. Now, if he doesn't have the world champion and championship and he shows up every 2-3 months, pops his head in, suplexes people, gives some F5s, cool. But that guy cannot be your world champion and trying to carry what you're trying to build with your company. So those are my thoughts on that. UFC 239, I don't think we talked about it on our last show, but just quick thoughts on that. John Jones defeated Thiago Santos, split decision. I mean, Jones, he's the greatest of all time, I think, and he's a tremendous champion. But you reach an age, and the way he's lived in and out of the octagon, it's going to catch up with you. And you're starting to see signs of deterioration from him. Now, is he still the best fighter in the world? Sure. But he's taken some punishment from Gustafsson fights. Even Cormier got him down a little bit. And then the drugs, the cocaine, I mean, I'm not speaking out of turn. This is what's gone down with him. It catches up with you eventually. Now, is there a fighter out there right now that could take him out? I don't know. Cormier has enough issues dealing with his rematch with Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight championship. But if Cormier gets past him and finds a way to cut down to light heavyweight, Jones is very vulnerable right now. A fighter that's not vulnerable is Amanda Nunes. Complete domination over Holly Holm. First round TKO, head kick and punches. I've said she's the greatest woman fighter in history. And I don't like giving those terms out when a fighter is still active. but the women's division is a little bit younger than the men's one. So you look at her. Look, she's home, took out. Cyborg took out. Ronda Rousey in first round, less than a minute. Yeah, you go down her list, man. It is very impressive. So Nunes, she's just rolling right now. That was a very impressive performance. Uh, Jorge Masvidal, awesome flying knee to Ben Askren. I don't need to hear from Askren for about 5-6 months. He was talking about fighting for a championship and barely it's his second fight in the UFC. I'm done with him for now. Now he's a very good fighter. He talks a lot of crap. That's cool, but yeah, he looked past his opponent, and that was pretty obvious. Luke Rockhold and Diego Sanchez, they lost their fights pretty convincingly. I never want to tell a man to retire, and I know Diego Sanchez had some bizarre interviews and interesting approach to things over the past few months, especially when you only had one corner man in the fight, which is I guess his shaman or his teacher. I don't know what you want to, or his yogi or whatever term you want to use, but yeah, just and I didn't like what I saw from Diego Sanchez. He has to reevaluate some things. And finally, condolences to the Pernell Whitaker family and his death this week. He was hit by a car. Still some investigations as we're recording this of what went down, but a man that, and I thought about my uncle Greg, who I still need to talk to, and I'm sure he knows about the passing. But I started following. Born in 1981, and I came up in the Mike Tyson era. That's who I knew. So I was like, and he's from Brooklyn. I'm from Brooklyn too. So I was used to seeing these fighters like Tyson, very bombastic, physical, intimidating, things along those lines. But I'd hear from guys like my uncle and some other fighters or other guys who were in the fight game. Look out for Sweet Pea, Pernell Whitaker, the Olympic gold medalist for the United States. And he's a small guy, one of the top 3 or 4 lightweights in the history of the sport. And I would look at him and say, he's a little guy. I didn't acknowledge what I was seeing. And even the defense, I was like, why doesn't he go out there and just swing for the fences and try to knock the guy out? Why is he ducking him? Why is he moving away? This is the junior high, elementary school kid in me watching the fights. Even watching the fight against Julio Cesar Chavez, which he obviously should have won. It ended up being a draw. But even watching those fights, I was like, man, this is boring. I don't get this. Why is he being lauded as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world? But then I got older and started appreciating what I saw a lot more. And I was looking up a lot of YouTube videos and some previous fights. His defense was impregnable. Incredible defensive fighter. You look at the instincts, being a southpaw and being able to duck punches and present a true tactician style in the ring that you had to be a little older than I was to appreciate. Now in my late 30s, I look back on it and I acknowledge what he was doing. He held 4 championships in 4 divisions. Even his fight against 1997 against Oscar De La Hoya, I remember that fight because that's when I was 16 at the time. So I started comprehending a little bit more of the fight game, and he really put it to De La Hoya. He really should have won that fight. Very debatable, even matchup. So, I mean, the man had a span from about 90 to 97 where he was maybe the best fighter in the world. So condolences to him and his family. A tremendous guy from what I've heard. I saw a video on HBO. I may repost it on my site or on my Twitter, my social media, where this is when he first became champion. He's being from Virginia. He went back to where he grew up. And you could tell he's a humble man, a man who's trying to move up in the world and help himself and his family. So watching all of that stuff, it's just disappointing. Not disappointing, but just very sad seeing a man who, as I said, I've not heard a bad word about from anybody. And the condolences going from around the world and all of the legendary fighters. But yeah, condolences to him and his family, and hopefully that case is resolved and there could be some solace in that being resolved and figured out. But that's a legendary fighter that was in between the Sugar Ray Leonard and Duran and Hearns era, as far as like the lightweights and the welterweights. And then afterwards you had guys like Mayweather and Pacquiao and Barrera and some of those other guys. but he was right there, and De La Hoya as well. He was in that middle era of guy that was just tremendous fighter and brought some excitement and some in his tactical approach to the game. So I'm gonna watch some more videos of him and appreciate his greatness inside of the ring. And thank you for listening to today's show. And we'll try to do one next week. We'll get more New Japan stuff, and I think there'll be another UFC coming up in the future. So we'll try to keep these going. I've been very excited to do these combat sports specific shows. But if you want to find out more about us, go to thesportsinquirer.net. And on Twitter and Instagram, go to Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. Facebook, The Sports Inquirer and Sports Inquirer. And finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under The Sports Inquirer. Until next time, good fight and good night.